Welcome to episode 4 of Conversations Over Sweet Tea podcast. This is your host, Virgil Bunau. It sounds like Bunau, not later. So we are this is our 4th episode. 4 episodes in, and we really appreciate you listening. I'm learning a lot in the world of voice, audio, and podcasting. I feel that I gained a little knowledge I gain a little knowledge now compared to our first episode. So it's still a never-ending journey. We're still trying to navigate through this, and I'm just so filled with gratitude for all of you out there that are listening and continuing to listen and download each episode. So thank you. Please keep spreading the word and sharing the podcast to friends and family and to anyone that you think would love to listen to our podcast. So each podcast has a corresponding video content, which is posted on our YouTube channel. So when you have a moment, please head to our YouTube channel. Just search Virgil Bunau on the search. It's Bunao. And let us know what you think on the comment section. Give us a feedback. Your feedback is my oxygen. You can also give us a rating on iTunes. This podcast is broadcasted in iTunes for now, and there's a way to leave a comment as well as a rating on there. So that's one of my announcements. And the another announcement that I wanted to really let you guys know is, as we navigate through the world of podcasting, like I said earlier, we're learning a lot. So I'm actually eliminating the food portion of this podcast, and we're just going to stick with sweet tea and conversations over sweet tea. It was, as I listened to the last 3 podcasts that we did, it was kind of creepy and weird to hear me chewing and eating food. So it was so I was like, you know what? I think we just need to eliminate the food part and stick with the conversation. So I think that's what we're going to do moving forward. We still have the sweet tea, and so that's what we're going to do. So we have a special guest today, and she's a very good friend of mine. She is so wonderful. We really like her. Her name is Keely Laughlin, and she is a rising star in the photography circuit here in Charleston. She is an emerging freelance photographer in Charleston. In my opinion, she's one to watch in this community. She is a photographer in the Charleston scene, specializing in food and lifestyle photography. She graduated from the College of Charleston with a business degree. She has had marketing positions at the Charleston Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. She's now a regular contributor, a photographer for the Charleston City paper. So I'm just going to let her tell her story. So I would like to welcome the Keely Laughlin to the show.
Hello.
What's up?
Thank you so much for having me and
You're
saying
welcome.
all those sweet things.
Oh.
I don't know how true I think those are, but I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here. I know it was quite a drive from James Island to come all the way to our little humble town of Somerville.
Yeah, but it's so nice to be here, away from the hustle and bustle of James Island.
How was the traffic?
It was easy.
Yeah.
So easy. I like to get in a lane and coast. I'm a very passive driver, and I was able to just get in the center lane and go about 62 the whole way.
And the beauty about Somerville, not that I am being paid by the town of Somerville, but that traffic is almost always opposite.
Exactly.
If you're going to Somerville, the traffic isn't so bad, but if you're going to Charleston, it gets kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, it looked pretty
Heavy
heavy,
on the way here.
but we won't talk about them.
Yeah, I know. So we're gonna go. So let's go. Before we start, I guess, with your questions, I want our audience to know about you. So tell us a little bit about your background with
Sure.
school, photography, how it all came about, how it all got started.
Yeah, so I think I, like many people, got interested in photography when they were little kids. I always had every single magazine in my room, and I held on to, I mean, from the time I was 5, I would buy everything. I would hold on to them. When we would clean out my room, there were just stacks and stacks and stacks. It was a fire hazard, honestly. But I think I was really obsessed with the human face from early on, but I had no artistic ability. Like with my hands, I couldn't paint, I couldn't draw, I couldn't do anything. But I took a lot of pictures. I had just the basic disposable cameras, and I would try to make the pictures have depth of field and these things I didn't really understand. And you can't do that with those. And my parents thought those pictures were kind of crappy. So I wasn't ever aware that photography was a career until I graduated from college and started working at the Charleston Visitors Bureau. And it's a kind of the marketing arm of Charleston, South Carolina. They do all the national and international marketing for the community in the area, and working in that company made me fall in love with pictures again. And I got to work with a lot of the photographers that they had shoot for their advertisements, and I just kind of picked it up, and everyone there was super supportive and gave me lots of encouragement and great critiques. I mean, these were really awesome graphic designers and, you know, people who had been in the industry for a long time, so I got exposed to such good information. So from there, I went to work for a hospitality company where I could really hone in on shooting food. People and food have always been my favorites. So I spent a couple years shooting food for the restaurant that hospitality company had. And then I was ready to go off on my own. So that's kind of how it happened.
Are you still loving food, and not just to eat, of course, but to photograph? And what is it about food that's so? I mean, I love food photography, but what is it that's so awesome and enticing to photograph?
I think when you get a really good food photograph, it just elicits a certain reaction from the viewer, and I really like some sort of motion in food photography. I mean, it's obviously a static thing. It's, you know, it's not like a person where it's moving around and you're chasing it. It's right there. But if you can get some kind of interaction or motion, or I think that really brings out a feeling in people when they look at it. Like, I want that. I want to have that. So it really stretches, for me, it stretches the bounds of your creativity to try and see how you can make people feel when they look at an image. So that's what really interests me about food. It's so craveable. It's so, you know, palpable when you look at an image.
What about, like, so you're into lifestyle and portraits.
Mm-hmm.
What's so, I mean, I love food photography, and I feel like there's a switch that you need to flip when it comes to from photographing food to photographing people.
Yeah, and I think, so I approach things kind of from a marketing background because that's where I was for so long. So for me, a lot of my food kind of comes from this marketing or magazine background. And the same thing when I'm shooting for a company and not a person. When I'm shooting a commercial image, I approach it from kind of that more marketing background and how I want the image to be perceived, how I want the brand to be perceived. But then when you're shooting for an individual, as you know, it's really about letting them shine and letting their personality come through.
I agree. So, yeah, 100%.
It's kind of finding what's special about them.
Yeah. How is you and I talk a lot about the industry and Charleston and beyond, and you know, you're a rising star, so you're just diving into this like all in.
You guys have to watch the YouTube video for the eye roll there.
This camera is pointed towards you. Yeah, we're gonna definitely highlight that. How has it been out there, Keely?
It's such a great community, I think. I have been so fortunate to have really great friends like you and some other photographers in town that have been really generous with me and given me lots of opportunities and lots of information. So I think that I got very lucky in that sense. But yeah, it's hard. There's a lot of photographers. There's a lot of photographers in Charleston. It's such a creative town. So getting your name out there and really defining your own style and what you bring to the table is a challenge, I think. Because you look at one person who's really successful and they're, doing really shadows and a lot of contrast and darker. And then you look at another person and it's bright and it's airy and it's sort of like a headache. You're just like, I don't even know anymore. I'm so confused.
Yeah.
What is, if you spend all the time looking at that stuff, it's like, what even is a good image? I don't even know anymore.
Yeah, I get it. It's Charleston, I think, with us being the number one city for 4 or 5 years, I can't even count.
I can't keep track.
We attract a lot of awesome, beautiful, hardworking people that are moving here, and they're producing a lot of beautiful work. And as a result, I think there's competition. There's a lot of, I don't want to say the word saturated, because I don't think, even though people think that we're saturated as far as the photography industry, I don't think we are yet. I think we're not like as bad as New York and LA, where there's like really a billion photographers out there.
Yeah.
But for you guys that are listening early, I missed a little introduction, one little snippet of introduction. Keely came in. We've been talking about doing a podcast, about some kind of mentoring podcast, and how to just really get our work out there more, and just really figure out how to get more business and make a living out of doing photography. And so that's one of the reasons why Keely's here. Also, she's hanging out with me and helping me test this whole podcast experience. So so I thought maybe I'd invite Keely to just have a little conversation about, what things I could help her with, and what things that maybe I could answer for her. I'm not, even though I've been doing this for about 14 years, by far, I don't consider myself the know-it-all, but I'll try to see if I can give you some advice. Maybe we'll see. So did you have some questions as far as like how? What are the questions that just pops up in your head that that you want answered right now if you were to ask?
Yeah. So I guess right now I would say I'm at a point where I've got a really good knowledge and understanding of photography and shooting, but when you get into style and what makes you different, how have you in your career, Virgil, kind of defined your style, and where have you like drawn your influences from without, kind of looking at competition and what other people are doing? Like, how do you control what you're influenced by, and, how you develop?
It's so hard today compared to when I first started. When I first started, we didn't have the internet, right? This was like 2004. I mean, we did have internet. It was dial-up, in a way, but it wasn't as bad. I guess I've been around cameras for as long as probably when I was 10. But going back to the earlier times of my career, I had to just search. Nobody really wanted to help at the time. There was not a lot of resources. I think there was YouTube, but it wasn't really a very reliable resource on what to learn. I mean, I think we're filled with, right now, we are surrounded with resources as far as if you need to know how to use your camera, how to change batteries, or a bunch of how-to videos are available right now.
How to put the strap on your camera.
Yeah, exactly. There's good and bad. Instagram is awesome. I mean, I'm inspired by all these people that I follow on Instagram. But sometimes it gets overwhelming to see other people's work, and sometimes it's costing me more I don't want to say the word pain, but envious maybe sometimes when they're like shooting in Morocco or in Indonesia or,
Right.
but I feel like I have to control what I can control. And my strategy is just put my best foot forward and control what I can control and work on me instead of looking at other people's work because it gets depressing, when you look at other people's work, you're like, man, I suck. I need to up my game. It's either
Why
gonna
are you still in Dubai? Other
exactly,
people.
yeah, and I feel like it's not. Before it used to motivate me and put chips, on my shoulder and be like, you know what, I can do that. I'm gonna do my hardest. But constant looking at other people's work, I think it just puts me down. So I stopped looking at other people's work.
Mm-hmm.
I do follow my clients because I want to keep up with their lives and know them, but uh, I actually started unfollowing a lot of people in my industry because I don't want to be clouded by that image or by the images that I see. No offense to you guys that I unfollowed. I'm sorry, but just for me, I had to do it. I do have a couple of Instagram accounts, so I do follow them on that account that I don't frequently look at people, but on my main account, on my main weddings account, I started really unfollowing a lot of people within my industry because I don't want to see that. I want to kind of come up with my own. And as far as inspiration, I draw my inspiration to a bunch of photos back in the 60s, 50s, like Grace Kelly's, JFK's. I was just looking at JFK's photo yesterday or last night from his wedding in the 60s. Was it 60s or 50s? I don't remember. But yeah, those photos really fuels me, and because they're so timeless.
Right.
You can tell what they're wearing is dated, but the timelessness of those photos, the authenticity, the uniqueness, the realness, the honesty, it's completely different. So I'm not sure about food photography, how you can draw inspiration from without having to look at other people's work. But at some point, I think when you're starting, you want to look at other people's work, right? But at some point, you have to find that time when, you're like, you know what? I think I'm going to I know what I can do. I know what I need to do. I'm going to start doing it. So while you're looking for your voice, and that's important to find your voice, I think it's okay to look at other people's work and admire it and maybe even emulate it. But at some point, you need to find that line where you need to just stop completely and trust you. Because while you're learning how to compose, you're learning how to style, you're learning how to light, you're learning about yourself. And however long that may take, a week, a month, 2 years, it took me, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years to finally find my voice. When you find your voice, it means finding a style, a voice, a work method that you are completely happy with for the rest of your life. And that's hard to find. And for some people, they never find it. For some people, they don't have it. For some people, they just want to keep copying and emulating.
Yeah.
But I think you can start by just, it's okay to look at other people's work. It's okay to be depressed and beat yourself down, but not too much. Use it as a fuel to have a chip on your shoulder to just keep pushing and keep learning and keep finding that voice. And once you find that voice, once you find you, I think you'll be in a better place. So it'll take time. You have to deploy patience and just practice and just keep doing it. And I don't remember your question, but I think I'm just...
You did it.
Oh, yeah.
You got it.
Yeah. I think you got to just deploy patience and self-awareness. I was telling Nathan this the other day, one of my mentees, and basically you have to figure out what you want to do, what you are, who you are. And that comes along with like finding your voice as far as your style and inspiration. Like I don't intentionally look for inspiration anymore. Like I don't want to sound cocky or anything, but I feel like I look at photos, and if it runs like on my feed, I see something that I like that appeals to me, I'll like it. Like the JFK photo, I didn't intentionally look for it. It just came across my feed. But I don't go intentionally on Pinterest or on Google. I'm like, you know what? I want to be inspired today, so I'm going to start looking for photos.
On Google.
On Google, yeah. But or what did I say? Did I say Pinterest?
You said Pinterest too.
Pinterest, yeah. But I feel like at some point it's okay to have that boost and like, I want to be inspired today. I think I know a lot of friends when they're shooting, like, what, I need to have some kind of pep rally, and I used to do that, like 2 hours before the wedding, or before I go to the wedding, like, what, I need to up myself up and get myself ready, and so I'd go to someone's website or on Pinterest and look at wedding photos that I liked and photographers that I liked. Now it's like, all right, I'm just gonna keep my mind and brain clear of anything, any problems, any situations, any inspiration, whatever, and I'm just going to keep it clear so that way I can think clearly and formulate in my brain and visualize, what, hopefully what I'm going to do, that day for the bride and the groom,
How important do you, this is like an off tangent question, how important do you think it is to go in with a really well-defined plan versus kind of seeing what unfolds, especially for, shoots with maybe couples where they're going to look at you and be like, what do we do?
Yeah, with wedding photography, it's so different because you're dealing with the public, you're dealing with so many different people from different walks of life. So with wedding photography, you have to be able to swing and react proactively on how people are. I never have the same type of people each weekend. Each weekend it's different from last weekend. So you have to be, and I think that's one of the things that are so important with wedding photography or photography in general, unless you're a landscape photographer and you're shooting in the middle of nowhere and not dealing with people. But when you're dealing with people photography, it's very important to be able to have empathy and understand how people are and what makes people happy, what makes people uncomfortable. And you have to be able to read that within seconds, and you have to be able to establish rapport within 2 minutes of you walking in the room. And I think it's very important to know when to be quiet and shut your mouth and just document instead of creating.
Yeah.
Because some people are like that. People, they don't want to create. They don't want to be guided. They don't want to be directed. So you have to be able to read that within a very short amount of time, And that's one of the things I think I developed probably a few years in, like learning about people and having that empathy of, all right, they're the type of people that don't want to be directed, that just want to be left alone, and you have to be able to react to that situation. Sometimes when you walk into a wedding and you have this preconceived notion of what wedding photography is supposed to be like, and you walk in and then it's the complete opposite. They don't want to be directed, or vice versa. They want to be directed, but you're just like not directing.
Yeah.
But really, they want to be directed. But it's one of those things that you can't really have a conversation with them about because they've never been married before. A lot of them have never gone through a wedding before.
Right, and it's such an emotional day.
Yeah.
That's the thing that when I walk away from a wedding day, that's the thing that always strikes me. It's like I was just there for all of these moments that you just never. You're not on that level with those people, but yet there you are.
Yeah.
And along for one of the biggest moments of their life.
It is. It's very interesting. And I look back sometimes, 14 years, over 400 weddings, 30 to 40 weddings a year. Yeah, I've met a lot of people with different personalities. People ask me all the time, like, do you love weddings? It's like, I love what's within that wedding culture, in a way, what happens. I don't want to say out there, oh, I love weddings. Like, ooh, weddings are my passion. Yay, But I love the people part of weddings. I love the emotions. I love the bond. I love the family, the joining, the beginning of a legacy. I love all that. I love the moments. I love that you are pushed as a photographer in so many different aspects of the day. You're pushed in your skill and what you can do within how you can react, on your feet.
Mm-hmm.
If it's raining, if there's a storm, if there's some issues, if the bride's not happy, or if the mother of the bride's freaking out about something, there's so many things that I love about it. So yeah, it's you shot with me a couple of times. What was the most exciting part for you?
I was terrified during every first look. And the last one we did, I came to the first look with the groom, and I had my 70 to 200, and I was ready. I was like, I'm finally ready. This is like the fourth one. I'm ready to go with this first look. I've got it. I'm not shaking. And you looked at me and you were like, shoot that way. And I didn't understand what you were saying. And I was like, this feels like a trick. And the backstory is he wanted me to shoot the family because we had 3 shooters that day. And Virgil was trying to get me to shoot the family because their reactions were so beautiful. But I was just like, wait, you do not want me to shoot these 2 people? You want me to go look this way? This feels wrong. But yeah, the first look's always really, really exciting. And it definitely gets the blood pumping. You're like ready. You don't want to miss it. And then after that, I feel like you ease into everything a little bit more. It's that first big, big moment. And then everything kind of feels more comfortable after that. Yeah. Oh, and the dance floor is really fun. I like the dance floor.
The dance floor is hilarious. That's like... I mean, for me, I don't really stop shooting. Some people would be like, oh, I'm not going to take photos of that. Like, if I'm there, like, my job is to take photographs. So if your pants are ripped, if you're dancing, you guys, I don't know if you've seen that photo that I posted, but that's just an illustration of, like, how I shoot the dance floor. If your pants are ripped and you're still dancing, I'm going to document that. The bride's going to want that. And I've actually had people email me that as far as brides be like, hey, we want a photographer that would document everything, like that, the funniest part, and laugh with us. If my husband's pants rip, I want you to be there and laugh with us and document that. So I was like, oh, okay, you're my kind of people. So.
Yeah, it's fun. It's really, I feel like also I'm so interested in the music that people play, and in particular, like what they go crazy for. Yeah. And it seems like there's a big 90s revival right now. 90s like 90s, early 2000s.
It's so hard for me sometimes to sometimes I take it for granted, but when I go to these weddings, it's hard for me to understand like how other people outside of my world to understand, like, oh man, they don't really listen to the same bands that I listen to. It's like when I go to these places, because I do it every weekend, it's hard for me to like, I take it for granted because I go to these weddings with amazing bands and amazing music, and then I go home and Courtney was like, how's your day? I was like, oh, it's all right. But really, it was amazing because it was.
But really, it was like the best. It was ever.
Like if I were to take my friends to these weddings that I shoot, they'd be like, "Oh my God, you have like the most awesome job." I just thought about that because my friends and I were all like talking about it and having a band, and we all went out one time to Boone Hall for a big, I think it was a fundraising, Uncorked, in November, and we had a blast, and. From the back of my head, I was like, yeah. They were like, oh, yeah, the band was so good. And I was like, yeah, it was really good. But in the back of my mind, I was like, yeah, but the band last weekend was better. But I felt bad in a way, so I didn't really tell them that. I felt bad.
Yeah.
But I take it for granted, as a photographer. If you're a wedding photographer, you go to these parties, you take it for granted because you do it so often. But I try to just be, present and be grateful of what I do, because I think having gratitude, it's hard sometimes to feel gratitude, especially if you're having some troubles in life, or problems, or having a stressful day or a bad week. But I think gratitude, just remembering that, I think it grounds me in a way that all right, you know what? I am grateful. It could be worse. Like,
Mm-hmm.
wedding photography is so fun. At the same time, it gets stressful, especially before and after the wedding, leading up to the business part. I mean, it's a business. The fun part is shooting and delivering beautiful images. The stressful part is, the business side, taxes, accounting, maintaining a business, advertising, marketing, dealing with people.
Mm-hmm.
It's a business as a whole. So that's one of the things that I think gets challenging for a lot of photographers is navigating around the business, navigating through the business, and just really managing all that, the tax part and charging, pricing,
Yeah.
you know.
And that was, I guess this brings us back. So establishing your brand and kind of setting your price points. I have a lot of friends right now who are starting their own businesses, girlfriends, and it's something we talk about a lot. They're, in marketing, they're artists, whatever, and how you set your prices and then actually follow through and like make sure people pay you is really hard. And it's something that we're all kind of struggling with, trying to figure out where we should be. So if you could share, advice on how to start, like even where to start.
So, like, where do you start as far as pricing?
Yeah. Like, where do you, I don't even know. And you know what I've looked at a lot of other sites and tried to find as much information as I can. And I don't want to get work because I'm like the affordable choice, but I also don't think that I should price the same as someone who's too far, too more experienced.
So the immigrant in me wants to tell you to just go with a volume and charge as low as you can and work your ass off, right? That's like my dad's immigrant mentality, and produce the best work at the cheapest price possible. With being a creative, it's a little bit more complicated than that because you're giving up a lot. Like when you're taking photos, you're actually giving your soul and everything about you on every work that you do. I don't know if you see it that way, but that's how I see my work. It's like it drains me. Like I have X amount of fuel in my body that I can give so much. It takes a lot out of it sounds cheesy. It takes a lot out of my soul to create something. And I feel like, I don't know if I'm running out. I don't know when that time will be. But it takes a lot of energy because your work represents how you were raised, what you value, how you see things, right? It goes back to your background.
Mm-hmm.
And to put a price tag on that, it's such a difficult task to do. What I know is you have to flip the switch of business, and you have a business degree from the College Charleston, and I feel like you have to flip a switch from your creative switch to a business switch and figure out, this goes back to self-awareness, like who you want to be, where you want to be. Figure out how much money do you need a week, a month to survive, and then add 50% on top of that. So have some kind of goal, like starting from the very basic, like how much rent do you have to pay? How much mortgage do you have to pay? How much money do you need for food? How much money do you need for utilities? Start with that. So if you need $1,000 a month, then you need to be bringing in at least $1,000 a month, or at least $1,500 because you have to pay taxes on what you make, right? So start there. And then as your life gets a little bit more complicated with kids or business or studio expense or marketing expense or equipment expense, then you have to add that into factor. Mm-hmm. So the best way is to really start using either a spreadsheet, or if you want to get a little bit more complex, start using QuickBooks and really jotting it down and really just diving in and really treating it as an oxygen to survival as far as your business. Mm-hmm. Because you can't just be a photographer and keep shooting. If you're passionate with it, then you have to take care of that part also.
Right.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard because some people have just a creative brain and they don't have that brain of looking at a profit and loss statement. Or if they don't know what that means, it's hard going from creative to figuring out, okay, how much money did I make this week? How much am I spending a month? And having that discipline. Some people they shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very important.
It's scary.
It is very scary. And that's just the price you pay to survive and to do this for a living.
Mm-hmm.
It's life, you know, it
Yeah.
sucks and everybody has to do it. You know, and that once you figure that out, then you can come up with, all right, I need to be charging an hourly rate of $100 an hour or $300 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to be doing 10 jobs a week to pay those bills and pay myself.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You have to really do that once a week or once every 2 weeks. At first, you really have to dive in and have some kind of baseline.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm giving you advice right now what to do, I'd sit down in a quiet room, write down your expenses,
Mm-hmm.
just basic expenses, mortgage, rent, food, utilities, health insurance, whatever else you spend. And that just kind of gives you an idea how much money that needs to be going out of the bank a week or a month.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to be matching that in a way, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then from there, figure out, okay, how much do I want to charge? How much are people charging around me? And then how many?
Right. And then what's the frequency?
Yeah. For me, it's just really, again, going back to my immigrant mentality. Once you figure that out, charge as low as you can and go with volume and use Instagram, Facebook to increase awareness about your brand, about your
Mm-hmm.
work.
Yeah. So how do you go out? So you know what you need to do. How do you go out and get that customer? How do you as Virgil do that?
It's so hard in 2000 now compared to 2004. 2004, there's not a lot of people that were really good in Charleston. Charleston was still, you know, not even on the map
Yeah.
as far as one of the best cities in the United States. Now, 2018, it's tougher because every photographer in Charleston are good. I think the people that suck are no longer in business. You know,
They left Charleston.
they left or they just started doing something else. They started retiring. They couldn't keep up. So now everybody's good and everyone, a lot of people are moving to Charleston and a lot of
Mhm.
people are trying to shoot in Charleston and trying to get a piece of the pie here. So how do you get out and get customers in Charleston? It's you have to be doing what other people are not willing to do. You have to raise awareness about your brand. You have to work. You have to put your head down and just keep your head down and work. Some tactical advice, you know, a given thing that you have to do is you have to post something valuable on your Instagram. That's Instagram is huge. So if you're in food or you're in the portrait industry, I would really dive into doing maybe 1 to 5 styled shoots a week
Mm-hmm.
on food.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that could be expensive, but find ways to cut costs and do it yourself, or find ways to reach out to restaurants that are like a hole in the wall in North Charleston or Sproul Avenue or Somerville or Goose Creek or Monk's Court, somewhere where it's a mom and pop, and be like, hey, I'm a photographer. You know, it's in a way we can collaborate and then style it. Just invest your time and get to work.
Mm-hmm.
Use that as an opportunity to come up with beautiful images and post it on your Instagram. Instagram ads is the most underpriced attention advertising right now. Instagram ads, you can reach thousands of people for $30. I think that's a great way. Instagram stories are huge. Facebook ads are so cheap. They're only going to be cheap for so long. I think once Coke and Pepsi and Under Armour and the big companies start spending their money on Facebook ads and Instagram ads, it's going to get a lot more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So right now you can reach literally thousands and thousands of people for under $100
Mm-hmm.
on advertising. So that's what I would do. I would definitely use social media and a lot of the other social platforms to get your word out there. I would definitely network to a lot of, to any relevant parties or gathering or networking, like maybe the Chamber of Commerce,
Mm-hmm.
maybe associations with the restaurants, or ILEA is an event. I think it's a corporate event association in Charleston.
Mm-hmm.
It's called ILEA. I would definitely do that. This goes back to self-awareness and what you want to be, where you want to be. You have to put in, literally, I feel like if you want to be successful, if you want to win, 16, 18-hour work days.
Mm-hmm.
Work meaning not just, sitting in front of a computer, but work meaning shooting, styling, collaborating, contacting restaurants, creating,
Mm-hmm.
raising awareness, using hashtags, researching what are hashtags that are, in your industry, like what hashtag food photography maybe is probably popular right now. So I would start there. I would go back to, every time I run into some kind of adversity or challenge or a question in my business or anything in my life, I ask the question like, what's the most basic thing I can do right now? What's the first step?
Mm-hmm.
I would take a step back
'Cause
from
it's
this
such a big thing to tackle.
Yes.
But what can I do right now?
What can I do right now to move the needle a little bit? And I think life is about that, just moving the needle a little bit. Just Happy Gilmore had a movie about golf, like just tap it in, just tap, just tap it in. So it's like just tap, stay basic. Like, I mean, I think you're doing great by just doing. I love your Instagram. If you're listening out there, you can follow Keely's Instagram. What's your Instagram again?
It's at Keely Laughlin Photo.
So she has beautiful work that she's posting there, and I think she needs to post more food stuff. That's what I told you the other day, right?
Working on it.
Working on it. Get some projects. Did I
Yeah.
answer your question?
You did.
I feel like I went
You
on
did.
a tangent there.
Yes, it's very helpful.
I think the last thing is I think you have to have a YouTube channel. That's huge.
That's what I was thinking that while you were talking. How important do you think it is for photographers now to also be fluent in video?
I think you have to be a multimedia artist now in any business, not just photography.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a realtor, you need to be like the mayor of the media of your town. I think within your own company, you have to have a media company within your own company.
Mm-hmm.
Like Keely Photo, you're by yourself. You don't have a lot of resources. You don't have a big team. You're starting. You're merging. So that means you have to do it yourself, or find some interns or somebody you can bribe with, free photos or something you can trade with, or
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have the resources, you have to get it done. I think video is huge. Even if you're just posting 1 minute, 2 minute videos on YouTube, I think it's huge. If you're only getting 20 views, 5 subscribers, I think it's better than 0. I think it's very important.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons why I started this podcast journey is I think audio is going to be huge soon. People
Mm-hmm.
are always stuck in traffic. People are always waiting on their doctor or something, or doing something that they need some kind of entertainment or some kind of activity to save time or
Mm-hmm.
to help them forget time. People are on trains or on commute. They can just turn on their phones and listen to something they love and get value from.
Yeah.
So I think it's huge to include video in any business, not just photography. So I think that's one of the projects that you need to really start wrapping your head around and start probably investing your time
Mm-hmm.
and effort.
Mm-hmm.
Like one example is like when you're shooting food, styling. I mean, you don't have to have a fancy studio to shoot a video. Just put a camera up on a tripod, talk to it, like a crazy person. And like just tell them your story. I mean, you don't have to have a very high production kind of work. I mean, I don't think you have to be fancy. If you have just a random Rebel camera that does video, just put it up. Audio may suck. You can get one of these $30 microphones that we have here.
Yeah.
and put it up and be like, hey guys, I'm having a great day today. I'm working on this project. Just tell your story, and
Yeah.
like make it a vlogging style, and people love that stuff, man.
It's weird. Like, there's so many that I'm like, okay, I'm going to make a quick video about this, put it on my Instagram story. And then when I do it and I get there, I'm just like, this is so lame. Maybe I'm just too self-conscious about it.
I think you have to ask why you so. And I had this conversation yesterday with a friend of mine who's a realtor, because I keep pushing her to make videos.
Yeah.
And I said, you have to ask. She's like, I'm just so uncomfortable in front of a camera. Like when you were taking my headshots, I was just so uncomfortable. Like you could tell from some of the photos. Like, you did a good job taking my photos and bringing my personality out, but there were just some moments that just feel so uncomfortable. I was like, well, I think you have to ask first, tackle the question, what makes me uncomfortable, and then go from there. I think most people are uncomfortable because they're thinking about what other people would think, and they're adding a lot of value on other people's opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like either shy or embarrassed, or they're not good enough, or they're not made for this. But in the end, you have to do it.
Yeah. I mean, right now it's just, you really are just not selling yourself. That sounds kind of bad, but like I feel like there's just so much out there that you really need to share with people,
right?
And give them another reason why they want to work with you. And yeah,
my immigrant mentality is like, you have to do whatever it takes to survive. Like if you want it bad enough, like you can't just go in this kind of wanting it.
mm-hmm.
You have to really want it to win. You have to like just do whatever it takes. Everything, you have to keep your mind open and stop putting value on other people's opinions. Because once you do that, you can get on offense and start doing things that matter,
Mm-hmm.
that will allow you to win.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard. It's not the easiest thing. It took me a while. I still somehow I still have to kind of wake myself up from that situation where I'm like, man, I don't really want them to think I am cheesy, or, so it's hard, but you have to do it. I think video is going to be huge in advertising soon. And the sooner you do it, the sooner you're ahead of the game, because there's so much to learn. Like we're still learning. Our YouTube channel is still young. Our podcast is still young. So once you become a practitioner on podcasting or YouTube, I think you start learning more little things. Like the other day, we're like, we don't have a URL yet for our podcast and on YouTube. It's like, well, how do I get a youtube.com/Virgil Bunau link? Well, we just learned that we need to have X amount of subscribers.
Oh, really? Is that how it works?
Yes.
Interesting.
And then the other day, what was it? I was recording on my phone, screen recording. We're doing a tutorial on how to make Instagram ads. And we ran into an issue when we downloaded the video. It would not post on YouTube. Oh, it posted on YouTube. We had to delete it because the audio was gone.
Ugh.
So I was like, oh, man, I have to do that again. But like little things like that, you don't just... The fact that you're looking at the camera, you're uncomfortable, that's just 1% of the battle. Yeah. It's like there's a lot more to it before people really get to see that video.
Oh, yeah.
The description, the name, the thumbnail, the options on YouTube. Like there's so many things you read, like monetizing it, like what are the rules?
Mm-hmm.
What can you do and you can't do? Like you can't use top 40 music. You got to have...
I've always wondered that, like what are you allowed to use on your...
You have to use a royalty-free music that you can purchase a membership from. Like there's a bunch of different music websites. And then you have to look for music that you like.
That sounds fun, though.
It's so fun.
It sounds really
fun.
But
that's what I'm saying. It's like there's so many things to learn.
There's so many details.
So many details. People think, oh, I don't want to do a video because I don't feel uncomfortable with the camera. I was like, all right, get over that, because there's a lot more to tackle after you tackle that.
That's step one. Now let's move on.
Yeah. And I think that's the first step there. But just realizing the fact that video is going to be huge. It's gonna be huge. It's gonna be Facebook loves video now.
Yeah.
I think that's the new thing now is uploading videos on Facebook because it goes viral. Like you ever watch video on Facebook, like a 1 minute video, and then after that 1 minute video, there's another video on after that video. I don't know if you've ever been on Facebook. Like I'm just watching how this is all happening, and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God. Like pretty soon, Facebook's gonna know what videos to pop up after you watch that video, like based on your interest, based on algorithm. On like right now, it's all over the place. Like I'm watching, I don't know, some laundry detergent video one day, and another video that I'm watching a completely different topic of a video. I feel like they're working on algorithms where what you see on Facebook is what's related to you or what you have clicked in the past.
Yeah.
Shopping. If I was shopping for boots, they're gonna show boots video or hunting. Maybe I don't know. I think they're improving. But anyway, what I'm saying is video is gonna be huge. If you're in food photography and you're posting food videos, I think that's gonna appear on your relevant audience.
Right.
So, and it's free. It's
Yeah.
like a platform, like YouTube. It's a free platform. Like,
Why wouldn't you?
yeah,
It's true.
yeah. So I don't know. I kind of went on a tangent over there again. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, no, this is all really good. This is all answering my questions.
I mean, I would give you like, hey, I would love to give you a tactical advice on, hey, you should charge $150 an hour because that's what everybody charging. Or, hey, charge $500 an hour. Or, hey, here's tactical advice. Post on Instagram, post on, on Facebook. But I can't do that. You have, I can only give you a direction of where things are at right now and what we're doing. I can't make you make a YouTube video, but you have to really realize how people's attention are on their phones now.
Yep.
It's
all about the phone.
Yeah. And then as far as the pricing part, that just reminded me because I was looking at my notes, going back to the pricing part. You can figure it out by going back to your basic expenses, how much money you can make or you have to make to cover those and then make money and live. And you got to plan for gear and equipment and hard drives, software, computers, Dropbox, all that stuff.
Pixie set. All the things.
Yeah. You don't realize how much like $10 a month subscription you need when you're a photographer. Like I subscribe to like Pixie Set, Hightail, Dropbox, Instaproofs. I feel like there's like on my statement every month, I see like a bunch of like, oh, $10 here, $20 a month here, $10. I'm like,
yeah,
damn.
for sure.
Website.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as an industry, I thought it was not like once you had the cameras, it was relatively like the overhead is relatively low considering because you don't have to open a storefront. You don't have to, obviously you're at a point where you have a studio and it's gorgeous and you have all of the things. But to get into it, the overhead wasn't too terrible. But you do have these expenses that pop up, especially when you want to give your clients a certain experience.
Well, one great example is this podcast project. I mean, we're not making money doing this podcast, but right now to upload this, we're using Simplecast, and it's $12 a month. And then I had to buy the software for this audio recording, and that's, what was that, $120? I think those little things. And then apps on the phone.
I have the Dark Sky app now.
Dark Sky app. Visco app was, I did the upgrade for $70. But yeah, there's these little things overhead, so you have to really plan and think about those things. What other challenges that you are sticky situations I'm looking at?
Sticky situations.
Yeah, like what?
So when someone comes to you and says, "Did you get this?" and you might not have gotten it. How do you handle? And it's different being in the field versus looking at the photos later. And this could be with anything, with, any kind of shoot. It's different being in the field.
Did you get Virgil? Did you get a photo of my cat? or
Yeah. Like you're like, no, I
or
didn't.
my great grandmother's earrings that I didn't wear and I didn't show you, and but I still wanted you to take a photo of it, and I
Exactly.
told you that 6 months ago. Yeah, so that's kind of tricky. I think to be proactive, you have to manage expectations in the beginning and try to figure out what photos that you need to capture,
Mm-hmm.
which is it's my least favorite part because going back to my strategy leading up to the wedding, I want to keep my head clear of anything, any list, any shot list, any Pinterest boards in my head, and just capture what's in front of me and let the stories unfold in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Having a good assistant helps with that list if they do give you a list, and I think with wedding photography that's very important. If you get stuck in a situation where you just missed it, I mean, the first thing you do is you say, "I'm sorry." Like, um, if you get that email, it's like, "Did you get this?" We've been in that situation where we um, get we did not get the photo that she was requesting, and we either we forgot or the photo didn't turn out.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did is we tried to obviously I apologized in the beginning, and then try to see what you can do to fix the problem or fix the situation.
Right.
Whether can you Photoshop, can you work with Photoshop, and if it's a person, can you do that? Or it all depends on the situation. In this situation, the bride, we were in a tough situation where we were in a dark church, super dark church,
Mm-hmm.
and the flash. I was with the bride in the back, and my second photographer was shooting the processional, and the flash failed of the second photographer.
Yeah.
And it was super dark church. It was the darkest church. I mean, the only light on this church was at the altar. It was like we were in a theater. So in those kind of situations, you have, I mean, you can always 2020. It's 2020 in hindsight, but you can always have a backup flash. But things are happening so fast, and our radio failed, so she didn't get the chance to call me, and the ceremony was already happening, and so she didn't really take photos of the bridesmaids going down the aisle because her flash failed.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, she was able to take a couple photos of the bride walking down the aisle.
Mm-hmm.
And I recognized the situation right after that happened because we communicated, and she said, "You know what? It's a flash failed. It was dark, and I don't know what happened." So I said, "That's okay. Just make sure that you capture bride and bridesmaids and everyone during the recessional when
Mm-hmm.
the people are walking away from the altar and the wedding's finished. Hopefully that'll alleviate, that part when you miss the processional." And I don't think she's going to say anything about it, so we didn't really say anything.
Mm-hmm.
But sure enough, she sent an email saying, "Is there any photos of the bridesmaids walking down the aisle?" So the first thing I did was basically look back in the photos just in case did any of our photos turn out, and sure enough, they didn't turn out. They were not salvageable. We could not do anything.
Yeah.
They were just dark. So I immediately emailed her and said, "I'm so sorry. We had a equipment malfunction, but we did photograph them after the ceremony during processional, and they turned out perfect."
Mm-hmm.
So to answer your question, I mean, the first thing is obviously apologize. If you did, it was your fault, and try to see what you can do. I would definitely, instead of emailing or texting, I would definitely have a phone call.
Conversation. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big thing if you're dealing with a sticky situation, is a phone call versus emails. There's
Mm-hmm.
a lot could happen between emails and between
Right.
texts,
Yeah.
and you don't know what they're feeling, and was it really a big deal to them, It's like, what can
Mhm.
you do? And that's from there with the phone call. From the phone call, you can start formulating how you can fix things, either through compensation or an extra shoot or
Mhm.
whatnot. So this is all going to depend on the project. Can you reshoot it? If it's a commercial project, if it's a food, can you redo it if it's something, a quick fix,
Mm-hmm.
I'd go ahead and fix it and reshoot it or re-edit it.
Yep.
With weddings, obviously, with that situation, we couldn't redo it. So with food or with portraits, hey, did you get a picture of me in this dress? It's like, no, I didn't, but maybe one day for 15 minutes I can photograph you again.
Exactly.
With food, oh, did you get a picture of the wine with the burger or the beer and the burger? It's like, no, but I'll be in the area next week. That was my bad. I'm so sorry. For some reason I just overlooked it. Try to really assess the situation and have deploy a lot of empathy on their part to them, what they're feeling and what their goals are. If they're your client, especially if they're a good client, go bend over backwards to do whatever it takes, to make them happy.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a really, really good client.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it was just an exchange of services or, that might be a different situation. You have to really assess, how on a business scale, like how is that, how are you going to treat your customers? And they're always right. You have to, it goes a long way when you treat people right.
Yep.
So it always goes back to treat them the way you want to be treated.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully I didn't go in too long of a tangent.
No, that was perfect.
Thanks so much, Keely, if you for coming here.
Thank you so much for having me and sharing all this awesome information.
This is so fun. We're coming up to the conclusion of our podcast. My idea was to keep it under an hour or under 30 minutes, but it's so hard, especially with a lot of very cool topics and interesting questions. I'd love to provide as much value to the people that I'm talking with and that are coming here and also to the listeners. So it's so hard to keep it under 30 minutes, but I'm striving. That's the goal. But right now I think we're going a little under an hour. But
yay.
Thanks so much for coming, Keely.
Thank you.
So guys, thank you for listening. And if you have some comments, feedback, I love feedback. I'd love to know who you would like to listen to on this podcast. Leave me a comment or a message, DM me if you have any questions, any suggestions. Again, I'm still trying to navigate this podcast audio experience. I think it's awesome. I am obsessed with it. I love listening to other people's podcasts. I love creating some material for you guys. So leave me a comment and let me know how we're doing. If you could also hit the 5-star and give us a nice rating, I would be really, really grateful. So thanks again for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.